Hey class, how you doing? Dr. Petty here. And today we're going to be covering what appears to be the possibly final assignment in Excel. Maybe there's one more after this, but anyways, this one's pretty in depth. We're going to get into a lot of different charts and pivot tables, creating charts from pivot tables and editing. So for the directions for this, I actually modified these a little bit to make them a bit easier to read and understand. So I'll be posting these in class under the resources area of your Halo. So this will make it easier for you to read and follow along. I kind of put letters underneath the sub-steps. So here, I'll give you an example. You can see this looks a little bit different than what you downloaded. I separated this out based on the steps so I wouldn't look over any because there was a lot of little details in here. But you'll be able to find this in your class resources area. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the first step. Of course, the very first step is always to... All right, so we want to make sure that we change the name of this document to a 2. As you can see, I've done a few of these already, but I'm just going to change this one to a 2 here, and then we'll browse, find the place to put this thing. I'm going to go with, I'll just throw it over here in music, where I had this other one. Oh, I already have one there. We can go with pictures. Okay, I'll just save it here. So I'm just saving it in a random place because I've already saved this a few times. So what I'm going to do is go on to the steps. Okay, so Sonia Montero is a sales manager for Barash and Company, an insurance agency with 3 offices in Wichita, Kansas. She is using an Excel workbook to analyze the agency's financial performance and asks for your help in creating advanced types of charts and pivot tables to provide an overview of policy sales. Okay, so this is where I started separating the instructions, and you're going to want to follow this with what I leave in class. So let me back up. Go to the policy sold worksheet. Let's do that. Policy sold, which is this right here. And then it says, which summarizes the number of insurance policies sold between 2016 and 2021. Sonia wants to illustrate the trend in the data and forecast policy sales for the next 2 years. Okay, so she says, create a scatter chart based on the range B12 through H3. So all we're going to do here is I'm going to select B2 through H3. I said 12 earlier, I'm sorry, I meant 2. So B2 through H3, B2 through H3. I'm just going to come over here to Insert, and I'm going to look for charts. Now, I'm going to see if you're using Windows, you should be able to see this option here. So I'm looking for a scatter chart, and as you can see, there it is, right there. So we dropped in our chart. What else do we need to do to this? Add a linear forecast trend line to the chart to project the sales to 2023. So here I'm going to open this up for my chart elements. And I'm going to come over here to trend line. I'm going to expand this. It's going to show me some different things. And we're going to look for a linear forecast. So we're kind of doing a regression analysis on this, it looks like. So let's do a linear forecast. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then resize and position the chart so that it covers the range B4 through H18. So let's go and do that for a moment. I'm going to try to put this in here as best as I can. I know this is a little frustrating. If you get marked down because you did not put this chart in the right place, you just want to make sure that your chart doesn't go over the cell border here. And I'm just trying really hard to make sure that, there we go, we're touching 18 and we're over here in 4, so it looks like we are fine. The chart is in the correct place. Okay, so that was pretty much it. That's all we had to do for that step. Okay, so step number 2 says go to the sales table worksheet, which contains a table named policies with details about insurance policies sold 2020 and 2021. Sonia wants to display the amount of revenue by branch. Okay, so go to the table worksheet. All right, so here's our table worksheet. We got a bunch of data here. And then it says to insert the sum of revenue by branch recommended pivot table. Now, Mac users insert a pivot table based on the policies table on a new worksheet. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to select this data because we're going to insert a table based on it. I'm going to come over here to insert, and then we're going to look for insert the sum revenue 2020 by branch recommended pivot table. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and select this. And yeah, from the insert, we're going to select recommended pivot table. Now we're going to scroll down because this gives us a few options here. And you got to be really careful what you're selecting. You want to make sure you grab the right one. We're looking for specifically, recommended by branch. So yeah, sum of revenue by branch. And literally it should say that on here, sum of revenue. And if you hover over these, you can see what's going on by branch. Okay, there it is. So that's the one we want, and I'm going to click OK. Now, as soon as we do this, you're going to see some things appear over here based on the data and whatever might be selected. And we're going to get into this in a minute with this next instruction. But just be sure at this time you should have this view open down here. And this is going to say sheet 1. Now, this happens because every time you open up a new pivot table or you make data another table from another table that was on another sheet, it creates it in a new sheet. It doesn't always have to. You can do it in the same sheet, but by default, it's going to do it here. So what are we going to do to this? Insert a table. We did that. So add the branch and agent fields as rows. So branch and agent are already kind of showing up as rows, and yours might. If they don't, it's as simple as clicking them up here to add them and remove them. So as you can see, I did that and it made everything go away. But when I add it and go on here, you can see it says agent ID and branch. So you want to make sure that this says agent ID and branch underneath here. And then it says, and the revenue 2021 field as the values. Okay, so the revenues down here, you can see it is already added as the values. Now I want you to look right here where this says sum of revenue. And we'll address this because you can see it's kind of saying up here. So I can change this, but I cannot change this. And I'll explain why in a little bit here as we get to that step. But all right, so use revenue by branch as the name of the new worksheet. So down here, I'm just going to right click this. I'm going to select rename, and we're going to say revenue by branch. Okay, so revenue by branch is the sheet name. And now it says apply the Coral pivot style, medium 12 style to the pivot table. All right, simple enough. What we're going to do here is we're going to select this. I'm going to come over here to design. I'm going to look for these pivot table styles, which are located right here. And I'm going to look for the Coral. So we're looking for Coral pivot style, medium 12. It looks like it's about right there. So for me, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns over, and it looks like one row down. I'll go ahead and select that, and it says remove the agent ID from the rows area. Okay, so agent ID was already inserted. Again, remember, if we want to remove it, it's just as simple as just clicking that agent button to make that go away, just like so. And then it says add the revenue 2020 field as the first field in the values area. So here you can see the revenue 2020 field isn't checked, and it's not going to be factored into this table. So I'm going to go ahead and check this. And down here you'll notice that it says 2020, but 2020 is below 2021. I want it the other way around. So to do this, I'm just going to drag this and drop it over it. So you can drag and drop these around like little buttons. And once you do that, you're good to go. All right, so letter G on my instructions, because I broke this up, the next step is to change the number format of the two value fields to currency with 0 places in the decimal. All right, so let's do that. So in order to modify this, because I want this to show up as currency, I'm going to come over here and drop this down. I'm going to go to value field settings. And we don't need to touch this, and you can't change this. So don't worry about this. We will change the headers, but we're not going to change it in here. I'm going to change the number format to currency, and then I'm going to specify no zeros here. I don't want any zeros, so I want the currency, and I took out the zeros, and I'm going to click OK. I'm going to leave this at sum, and I'm going to click OK. Now, I need to do this for each one of these. So I'm going to go over here and do the one below it. It does not update them all. So make sure you don't forget to take out the zeros. I did this earlier and I got that step wrong. It'll take off a point for that. So make sure you don't miss that. I'm going to click OK. And upon doing that, you can see how this has affected or basically updated this to the currency style like we needed. Okay, so letter H says use 2020 revenue as the column heading in cell B3 and use 2021 revenue as the column heading in cell C3. Okay, so let's go to B3. So this is where if I try to update this here on the values, it's going to say that this value already exists somewhere on the sheet. So we can't update it there. But what we can do is update it over here. So 2020 revenue, like so. And I'm going to go over here to 2021 and say revenue here as well. Okay, so we have 2020 and 2021 revenue. So far, so good. This is looking pretty good. All right, so on step number 3 says Sonia wants to include the average revenue in the pivot table. Add a calculated field to the pivot table named average revenue that adds the revenue 2020 and the revenue 2021 field values and then divides that result by 2. Use average 2021 as the column label in cell D3. Okay, so let's do this. We need to do a calculated field here that basically adds these two fields together and then divides it by 2 and then produces the results. So to get that, I'm going to go ahead and select this. And I'm going to go to Pivot Table Analyze. And this is where you want to go to, do calculated fields or add things to your Excel sheet or, different pieces of data. So I'm going to go to Fields, Items, and Sets. And I'm going to say Calculated Field. Okay, so we're going to be looking for these two fields here. So average revenue, so revenue 2020 and 2021. So really what I'm going to do is scroll down here to revenue 2020. I'm going to click OK. And let me modify that. I'm going to undo that because it's not what I wanted it to do. Of course, now it doesn't want to undo it. Yeah, it's not what I wanted at all, so that's fine. If you make a mistake like this, you don't need to crash the whole program. All you got to do is just right-click that field and remove some of field 1. Okay, so let's do that one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and just select this again. Come over here to Pivot Table Analyze. We're going to look up Calculated Field. Okay, so this time we are going to select Revenue, 2021 Revenue. Insert field. Don't click OK. That was just a mistake I made. And then we're going to be adding these two together. So I'm going to put the addition symbol, and then I'm going to insert the revenue 2021 field. So here I'm also going to put parentheses around this. This is kind of important. Be sure not to get rid of the little comma or apostrophe that's there, because this is part of the syntax. You don't want to remove that. If you do get rid of that little line, it's going to give you an error. So in here, what we're going to do is I'm going to put the division symbol and then 2. So what you should have is equals, parenthesis, little apostrophe, revenue 2020, apostrophe plus revenue 2021, apostrophe divided by 2. Make sure you also have that parenthesis there or it's not going to work out for you. The name of this, we're going to go ahead and name this average revenue. Okay, so average revenue. And then click OK. All right, there we go. So we have the sum of average revenue. We can go ahead and change that column header. So we're going to actually call this average 2020 to 2021. Okay, so average 2020 to 2021. Okay, so step number 4 says Sonia also wants to display the revenue by branch data as a chart. Okay. Insert a combo pivot chart based on the new pivot table. So here's our new pivot table. So we're going to just select the data in this pivot table. And we're going to come over here to insert. And we're going to look for a combo pivot chart. Okay, so we're going to come over here to charts. Let's go to recommended charts. And if this didn't pop up for you all the way, you can always just select one of these and select all charts, but you need to get to this menu here, and we're going to go with combo. And you can see here we have two things they're going to be displayed here based on the data. And we're going to display the 2020 revenue and the 2021 revenue. We did that. It's already clustered column by default, so we don't have to change anything there. It says, though, include a secondary axis for the average 2021 data. So down here, you want to check this box. So you can see what that does, puts that secondary axis in there. Make sure that box is checked. You don't need to check these two, though. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Go ahead and click OK, and it's going to plop that guy right there in the middle of your sheet. Okay, so step number 5 says format the pivot chart to make it easier to interpret and coordinate with the pivot table. Display the legend at the bottom of the chart and then hide the field list and all the field buttons to remove clutter from the worksheet. So you see we get these filter and field list things here, but it's kind of noisy and busy. And let's just say I don't want to have that in there. I could click this and I can just hide the field list. Oh, wait, not that option. Sorry, I'm going to show the field list. That's not what I wanted. We're going to go to pivot chart options, and we're going to come up here and actually, not the field list, I need to hide the field buttons. So here is, we're going to say hide all. And that way it's going to get rid of those things. So if I undo this, you can see what this does. So show different field buttons and everything. So I want to hide those buttons. I don't want those items in there. So if I hide these, it just takes away those buttons and it makes it less noisy, like you see here. And then it says it wants us to display the legend at the bottom of the chart. So here I'm going to come over here to legend, and we're going to send this to the bottom of the chart so that it appears just like so. And then it says here, change the maximum bounds for the value axis on the left to 9 million. All right, so if I want to edit this, I'm going to right-click this. I'm going to click in this this list right here, this list of numbers, and we're going to change the maximum bounds. So here I'm going to format axes, and when I select this, so I right-click this, format axes, I get to this menu right here. You can see here it's set at a maximum of 1 to 7 zeros, but we're going to change this to 9, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to press enter. And what you can see what this has done is this has taken that range. Since none of our figures actually go over 9,000, we wanted to clean up the chart and have it appear this way right here. All right, so that's done. We can go ahead and click away from that. And then it says to resize and position. Oh, we forgot one thing. See, change the pivot chart colors to monochromatic. Okay, so let's click on this. And we're going to go over here to design. And we're going to look at change colors. And we're looking at monochromatic palette 4. So this one right here. I'm going ahead, left click and select it, and I'm ready to resize my chart. So I'm going to resize the chart so it covers the range A9 through D24. So again, I'm going to line this up here. So A9 to D24. If you're doing this on a trackpad, I really strongly suggest you get a mouse. If you missed this step because it says you didn't resize the chart, you're just going to have to go back and kind of play with it and then resubmit it to see if you can get it right. I know it's a little frustrating, but it really helps to have a mouse for this particular assignment. Okay, we already resized it. Looks like we're good. All right, this looks good. This looks like what it should look like. Okay, so step number 6 now. Sonia asks to provide a quick way to filter the pivot table and a pivot chart by policy type. Add a slicer based on the policy type field and then apply the Coral Slicers style Light 4. Okay, so a slicer is nothing more than a tool that helps us to drill down on data and just filter out certain things really fast. So if I were to come over here, I could just select this. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to go to Pivot Table Analyze. And then you'll see here's timeline and slicer. Now I'm going to go for slicer. it's going to ask, well, what do you want to slice out? What do you want to base this on? So it looks like it wants us to base this on the policy type field. So we're going to say the policy type field highlighted right here. I'm going to click OK. It's going to, you can see our slicers went ahead and dropped in here. And then it says to apply the Coral Style Light 4. So over here, I can apply these styles. We're going to look for Light 4, which I believe is this one right there. If you missed that, that was right over here, Light 4. And display the slicer buttons in 2 columns. Okay, so I have my slicer right here. So over here are the different buttons and everything in columns. I'm going to go ahead and add those columns on there. You can see it kind of clean that up a little bit for me. And then it says display the slicer buttons in 2 columns, and then move and resize the slicer so that it's in the upper left corner is cell E3. So let's move this, cell E3, to G8. Again, this is one of those that you're just going to have to hopefully play with to get it right. Oh, no, I didn't want it that small. Sorry. All right, so we're supposed to be in E3 through G8. So let's go to E3 and G8. Okay, very good. All right, that should be good enough. Hopefully that'll work. All right, so now we need to filter this out. So it says use the slicer to filter the pivot table in pivot chart to display auto, home, and life policies. So this will automatically update if I could just remove disability. Now, if you run into this issue here where you're trying to select multiples, you can open this here. Click this checkbox right here, and then you can just select these different. Now, notice how this is updating this chart automatically as I kind of go around and do this. And then once I've done all that, I could just deselect it. I don't need to select any more buttons, but you can kind of see how the slicer works, how I'm able to find those categories and just quickly jump between these data points. Okay, so step number 7 says Sonia also wants to insert a pivot table that includes other policy information so that she can analyze the sales of life insurance policies in 2021. So here it says return to the sales table worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the sales table worksheet. And then create a pivot table based on the policies table. Okay, so we have this table. We're going to create another table. We've already got this selected. If you don't, you want to make sure that you do have it selected like so. We're going to go to insert, and then we're just going to say pivot table. Place the pivot table on a new worksheet using policies by type as the worksheet name. So we're going to go ahead and leave this like this, new worksheet. And down here, we want to make sure that we do not check this. I do not want to bring this all over. I just want these fields to come over. So I'm going to click OK. And you're going to see that all these are unchecked and nothing is here. So then it says place the pivot table. We're going to name this, or down here, we're going to rename this as policies by type. Okay, and then it says underneath here, my little subset, make sure the add this to the data model is unchecked. Yeah, you want to make sure that that other checkbox is unchecked. I already kind of covered that. All right, so D says display the policy types and then the agent IDs as the row headings. So we're going to say policy type and agent ID here. So policy type, agent ID. So it kind of built that out for us. Then it says the branch offices as the column headings. So we're going to say branch, but we're going to move this over to columns. And the policy sold in 2021 as the values. So we're going to just select the policies from here, and that's going to populate under values for us, so I don't have to worry about that. And the years of experience as the filter. Okay, so we have years of experience as the filter. And we're going to move that up there. Perfect. Okay, so we have that done. And that's pretty much what we needed to have at this point. So it says here, Sonia wants to improve the appearance of the pivot table and focus on policies sold by agents with 10 or more years of experience. Change the layout of the pivot table to the outline form to separate the policy types from the agent IDs. Okay, so I'm going to select this table here, and I need to change its layout. So I'm going to come over here to design, and we're going to look for the report layout, and we're going to show an outline form just like so. It kind of clears this up a little bit, makes it easier to see, as you can see. And then it says hide the field headers to streamline the design of the pivot table. Okay, so to hide the field headers, we're going to come over here to the pivot table analyze button, and I'm just going to select field headers and uncheck that. And that's going to make my field headers go away. And you can see how that kind of makes them go away and cleans things up. So I unselected the field headers. And C says display the subtotals at the bottom of each group, then filter the pivot table to show the policies by agents with 10 or more years of experience. Okay, so here, if I come over here to design again, I'm looking for subtotals, and we're gonna show all subtotals for the bottom of the group. And this is going to give us each one of these groups a subtotal. And then what I'm going to do is come over here and then say select 10 or more, and then click OK. And so our filter clears up, and now you can see that this is everyone with 10 or more years of experience. This is, you know, there are different agents that are here. So what is our next step? Let's take a look. So step number 9 says Sonia wants to know more details about the policy sold by top selling agent. Drill down into the auto policy sold in the downtown branch by agent, cell D6, and use top agent as the name of the new worksheet. So let's just say one of the great things about using pivot tables are that I can extract data from them to paint a picture relatively easy. So rather than having to look through this thing and make a calculation, I could come over here to D6, which is where our first agent is, and has a downtown area right here. So B, and all I have to do is double click it. That's it. So just double click that cell, and what's going to happen is it's going to grab all the information for that agent BC 1283, and you can see down here it's a rename. There's a new sheet. Let's go ahead and rename this sheet to top agent. And that is pretty much it. So that's all she needed here, was to see the top agent sales right here and the record for that agent. Step number 10 says return to the sales table worksheet. Okay, sales table worksheet. Sonia wants to compare the average revenue generated by insurance agents based on their years of experience. So the first step of this is insert a pivot table and a pivot chart on a new worksheet using average revenue as the worksheet name. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come over here to table design. Insert, sorry. Pivot table. And we're just going to drop this one on a new worksheet just like this. And now once we're in here, what I want you to do is go ahead and just click pivot chart. Go ahead and select the first option, the column chart, the clustered column, and then click OK. So now we have two blank charts. And we're going to modify this here, not this one, because this is going to dictate what happens to this. So we're going to be working here. All right, so insert a pivot table. Make sure to add this data to the model. Checkbox is unchecked. Yes, there's no data in here. And then it says, with the blank pivot chart selected, add years of experience to the field axis. Oh, let's be sure we rename this first. So average revenue. Rename. We're going to call this average revenue. Average revenue All right, and then it says it wants us to go ahead with the blank pivot chart selected, add the years of experience. So we're going to add this axis. Revenue 2020, and then revenue 2021. Okay, so we have our elements here. Change the value field settings of both value fields to display averages using the currency number format with 2 decimal places and the money symbol. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to value field settings. We're going to select averages, number format, currency, and then we're going to leave this with 2. And I'm going to click OK. All right, we want to make sure we do this for both of them. There we go. So we have our averages set in here, and this is displaying the correct data. And then it says to change the pivot chart layout to layout 3. So let's do that. So we're going to come over here to design, and we're going to go to chart, and we're going to look for layout 3. And then revenue by years of experience is going to be the chart title. Revenue by years of experience. Go ahead and hit enter so that it actually populates in there, and then we're going to move this to A9 to C24. So let's put this in A9 as best as we can, and we're going to take it all the way to C24. Okay, so we have this in here, A9 to C24. You can see I barely just got it in those borders there, and it looks pretty good. All right, I think that's all we have for that step. Let's just go down to step number 11, the final step. It says, return to the sales table worksheet. Sonia asks you to create a chart comparing the number of policies sold in 2021 to 3 categories of experience for each agent. She wants to find the median policies sold in 2021 by experience and any sales totals that are outliers in each category. Create a box and whisker chart based on the year's experience range D2 through D40 and the policies data range G2 through G40. Okay, so this one, we're going to have to do 2 non-adjacent ranges for this to work. What we're going to do is we're going to select the first range. So that's D2 through D20 or D40. I'm going to hold down the control key, and then I'm going to select the other range, which is G2 through G40. Okay, so I have G2 through G40. Move the chart. Oh wait, we forgot to create our box and whisker chart. So I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to look for Recommended Charts. Here, I'm going to actually click on All Charts. And literally, we're looking for box and whisker. As you can see why it gets its name, a little box with little whiskers hanging out of it. I'm going to click OK. And once this chart is here, what I would like you to do is move it to a new sheet. And you can do this by, once the chart plops into the middle here, I'm going to select Move Chart and select New Sheet. And then here we're going to say 2021 policies by experience as the name of the worksheet. I'm going to click OK. Now it's going to plop this into the worksheet. As you can see, it kind of makes it its own worksheet over here to really make a nice looking chart. So and then it says to use 2021 policy sold agent or policy sold by agent experience as the title. So here we're just going to update this title, 2021 policies sold by agent experience. There's a chart title. And then the last part of this step is to format the data series to show the inner points so that the data values appear as dots on the chart, and then apply the default gradient to make the dots easier to see. Well, we have this box and whisker chart here, but it's really not that easy to read. If I really want to read this much better, I'm going to go ahead and select this, and we're going to format the data series here. Okay, so I selected this. If you on a PC, you select this, you should get this window. If you don't, you should be able to right-click and select Format Data Series, and you're going to get here. So what I want you to do here is just simply select Show Inner Points. So this is going to show all of the median points that are taken from that data. And now we need to apply a gradient to this to make it a little bit easier to see. So as you can see, when I opened up my Format Data Series, I have multiple options here. I'm going to select the little bucket right here because this is our fill option, and I'm going to apply gradient. And I'm going to leave it. That is the preset default gradient, and there it is. I'm going to go ahead and select away from this, and now it's much easier to see the plots on this chart. Okay, I believe that is it. So ultimately, you want to make sure that your sheet or your chart looks like, or your workbook, you have all of these elements. So the first element should look like this, followed by this, followed by this, followed by that, and then finally this, and these items here. So you should be able to look through these things, and you should be able to see this in your own. And as I said, I will be posting these instructions that have these letter breakdowns for you in the class resources. So anyways, submit the assignment. You should get 100%. If for whatever reason you find that you do not get 100% because of this thing right here, this was created as a result of a mistake I made, it shouldn't bother your program. But if for some reason this does, we'll just let me know and we'll fix it in class, and or I'll just have to award you the point. But otherwise, this should give you a 20 out of 20. And like I said, if you have this, if you don't have this, you do not want to have this extra field in here. It shouldn't really make a difference, but if it does and you get marked down for this, just let me know. All right, that being said, this assignment should grade you up to 20 points if you've done it exactly like I've shown you. And I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care.